Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the back doors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Hello everybody, this is Jay with another episode of the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast, brought to you by the Sci-Fi Network. So, we got a couple of really cool things to talk about this episode, so let's just jump right in. So the first one, and there's kind of a new thing that's going on. I don't know exactly how new it is, but it is going on, and I think one of the, that technically is different, but like one of the first YouTube original things I remember seeing is actually on YouTube Red, which is called Cobra Kai, which I honestly haven't had a chance to watch much of yet. I've seen just clips here and there. And I guess that YouTube is starting to do more original content now. I guess that's what's going on. And I stumbled upon a trailer for a new movie that they're doing that was actually kind of intriguing. It's intriguing at least because of the cast that is in this thing. We have LeVar Burton. We have like Michael Cera. There's just a bunch of other people I've seen in 101 things, you know. So they got a really, really star-studded cast in this. And I think Jordan Peele is directing this. It's supposed to be a comedy. And I remember it was like when I first heard of it, I was like, oh, okay, that could be interesting, to say the least. Yeah, that could be interesting. And then, of course, when I actually watched it, I was like, man, this is really interesting. It's really kind of almost crazy at the same time. So this is called Weird City, which the first trailer for this thing went online, I think this last week, I want to say. It might be the last week or the last 2 weeks. It looks like it's basically like a city that like is very futuristic. I don't remember if they say what time period like in the future it takes place in, but yeah, there's all these new futuristic things, clothes, hairstyles, beauty products, and it's really just overall, it's really just kind of a trippy trailer, and it just kind of gets trippier and trippier as it goes along. Like I said, LeVar Burton is this, who's like most well known, at least to my generation, from Reading Rainbow. He was also, of course, Geordi on Star Trek Next Generation. He's returned as Geordi in some of the, not more recent, but, Star Trek Next Generation movies. So he's done that. He got back into headlines when, he went on Kickstarter and brought back Reading Rainbow, which I did give some money to for that. And yeah, like this is a movie where, like I said, the cast they got in this thing is amazing. It really is. But just watching this trailer a few times, I'm like, I don't know how well this is going to do, because it's a YouTube original, but like, is it on there now? I don't even remember if it said when it was going on or when it was going to premiere on YouTube. I don't know if it's YouTube Red, kind of like how Cobra Kai is, which, if it is, that's not just your usual everyday run-of-the-mill YouTube where you just go on and, hey, it's there. No, I don't think so. I think that YouTube Red is a subscription service. I truthfully don't know a huge amount about it, but yeah, like this trailer just, I don't know, and I don't know, when I look at movies like this, I'm like, we've gotten a lot of, future movies, we have. Some have been adaptations, some have been original stuff. Had a lot of remakes of like, Mad Max, and then there was Future World, which was a very, very poorly done Mad Max ripoff. Oh boy, was it terrible. Even though it was star-studded, it was not a good movie. So I guess I do have some concerns about this film. One concern is, when is it going to be live, and is it going to be on YouTube Red? I mean, is that where it's going to go? Is it going to be available to watch on YouTube as well, or only on YouTube Red? I do have a bit of a danger, warning, alarm go off my head, because it is very star-studded. And star-studded doesn't always mean good movie. It's just the reality. It doesn't. Just because you have a movie that's got this like big thing of stars doesn't always mean it's going to be good. I mean, get him, what was that movie called? George Clooney was in it, where he's like, in like, it's like in the 50s or 20s, like in Hollywood. It had like Josh Brolin and Wayne Knight and George Clooney and Channing Tatum and all just like huge cast of stars. It wasn't that good of a movie. It's like, no. And like I said, Future World is another example. It's a movie where, it had like, like Lucy Liu was in this thing, Mila Jovovich, Coolio was in this, or was it Snoop Dogg? No, it was Snoop Dogg. Sorry, Snoop Dogg was in it. It had like just huge cast of people, and James Franco, and it wasn't that good. It just wasn't. So I wonder if this film is going to be good or not. And I just wonder, like, okay, so you're doing this movie, it's going to be a comedy, but the trailer itself didn't really have many comedic, funny moments in it. No, it was more like drama-filled moments and just really weird, out-there moments. I don't think I remember laughing once. And I'm not saying, you have to laugh until it hurts with a trailer for a comedy, but it doesn't hurt. Even if it's a dark comedy, it's like there still should be some laughs there, don't you think? I mean, I watch a lot of comedies. Okay, I do like comedies. But yeah, this is just like, okay, so this is supposed to be a comedy, and I don't see the comedy, I don't feel the comedy. Where's the comedy? Like, Jordan Peele did Get Out, which is a really good thriller, and you knew it was a thriller by the trailer. You knew, hey, this is going to be a thriller, movie. The trailer went out for his next movie, Us. You know that's going to be a thriller movie by the trailer. You know it's going to be a little mind-warping, a little crazy, but that's how Get Out was. So it's like, okay, I know what it's going to be about. Even Jordan Peele, doing The Twilight Zone, which that is happening, by the way. There's going to be Jordan Peele's going to host a new Twilight Zone. If that can be good or not, I don't really know. That's just the truth. But at least hey, it's going to be Twilight Zone. You know what you're going to get out of it. This, I didn't really get a feel of this being a comedy. Even if it's a dark comedy, I didn't get a feel of it being a comedy at all. Not even a little bit. So yeah, there's that. And I just don't know. I mean, I wasn't really even that impressed with them. Just like, okay, this just looks really weird. That's really, in a nutshell. After watching this trailer, I'm like, this movie just looks weird. It just does. It's not a movie I'm necessarily excited to see. I mean, I'm intrigued to see it, but I'm not excited to see it. It's not a movie I want to, go on YouTube Red and watch now. Just no, if that's where it's playing anyway. And again, like I said, I don't even really know where it's playing. I want to say YouTube Red is where it's playing if it's a YouTube original, but I don't really fully know. And like I said, I don't remember seeing a release date for it, so I don't know. It's almost like an announcement. Oh yeah, we're doing this movie. When? We're doing this movie. Okay, when? So that's a little weird. So I don't know. This is just a movie where I want to be excited because Jordan Peele, has kind of started to make a good name for himself thanks to Get Out and now Us. Key and Peele was a popular show. I'm not going to say I watched it too much, but, it's a popular show. I wasn't a huge fan of Keanu, which, I think they tried to do as a comedy, and it just was kind of stupid, in my opinion. But, yeah, so this movie, I don't know. I guess I want to know more about it, and I'd kind of like to see more before I really, make a, hey, is this worth watching or not? That's just where I'm at, just the truth. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it could be good, but it could be really, really bad too. I think that's just where I stand with this one. I hope it's good. I do. But it could just be, a train wreck too. It just could. And it could just be another example of, hey, just because you have all these big stars in this movie does not mean it's guaranteed for success. That's just the truth. So that may just be another lesson that, hey, big stars don't make good movie. Just the reality. It's just the truth. It's just the way it is. But if you do want to check out this trailer, it is on YouTube now. And you know what? Maybe you're in a different place than I am. Maybe you are. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If I do find out more about this, we'll see if, I can bring more about it on here. So we're going to take ourselves a short little break right now. We'll be back in a moment with more sci-fi news.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hello everybody, this is Jay, back for some more sci-fi news. So this next one is actually a really interesting. I remember when I saw the trailer for this, again on YouTube, I was like, okay, that sounds kind of like an interesting show. It's got Asa Butterfield, which I think is actually a pretty good actor. He was really good in Ender's Game. I thought he did a good job, and I just recently saw Time Freak, which I thought was actually a pretty good film. I was impressed. I thought he did pretty good in The Space Between Us, so he's been in a number of films I've seen, I think he's done a good job in those films. I can't necessarily say the films themselves are the most amazing films I've ever seen and that you must go see these films now. I can't really honestly say that, but I can say that he's been in some good, big time stuff lately. Those are just the three that come to my mind, by the way. He's probably been in more than that. And we also have Gillian Anderson is in this show, which... I can never say I was a huge X-Files fan, but she's very well known for that, and she's done, of course, a bunch of stuff lately since then. They actually brought that show back for a while. I heard it wasn't too mind-blowingly amazing, but, that's okay. So this is kind of like almost, it's one of those shows for Netflix where I think it could only be on Netflix, to be fair. But it starts off at its core, like its surface, it seems like it's just a show about sex and all that stuff and lots of nudity and all that. And there's actually, when you go deeper and you peel off the first few layers, there's a lot more to it than that. So this show is called Sex Education. Season 1, I was able to watch. And yeah, so it's basically where Asa Butterfield plays a character called Otis, where his mom is a sex therapist, and he's starting that wonderful puberty, pubescent stuff going on, and he's kind of really he's got reasons that I won't fully get into here why he's kind of very hesitant around girls and the whole sex thing and all that stuff. And his mom being a sex therapist in their house, having an office there, doesn't really help. But he realizes, maybe that's something he could start doing at the school. He does it just to help one student out first, which he kind of does, kind of doesn't. And a girl he kind of likes, says, hey, we could do this, maybe make some money doing this and help some of these students out, right? So that's what starts happening on the school. They're in secondary school, which I think is their version of either middle school or high school. I'm not really sure. It takes place in the British countries and things like that. That's where it takes place. So this isn't taking place in America. And most of the actors therefore are, of British descent in those countries. That's just the way it is. And as the show progresses, it actually gets really, really good because, Otis realizes, hey, he's actually kind of good at this. He doesn't necessarily like talking about this stuff per se, but he realizes, hey, he's actually kind of helping people out with the problems they have just by listening and offering suggestions, and just kind of and it's really a show more about, teenage relationships, love, gender identity, things like that, things that I think happen for everybody around this age. I think they do. And Otis is kind of a late bloomer, which some people watching this show will definitely be able to relate with. And, he's got his good times and bad times on this first season, which is 8 episodes, about 50 minutes each. And, just like he kind of starts to get the hang of what he's doing, enjoy what he's doing, and kind of build a friendship with this girl Mauve, which he kind of likes, as the season progresses. And it's one of those shows like where I guess it ended up being better than I expected it to be. It really did. As the episodes progressed, I'm like, man, this is actually getting to be a really good show. You really start to feel for the characters. You start to like the characters, the good guys and the bad guys. The stuff they're going through, is very relatable. And it's just like, it's a show like, where, mistakes are made along the way, but it's real, where it's like, hey, they don't just get fixed in 20 minutes. But as like, and of course the characters grow, and become a bit better, in some ways, and also as the season progresses too, which is kind of nice to see. And I was just really impressed with this show. I was like, it is, of course, like I said, a show that can only be on Netflix. There's stuff on there. I'm like, yeah, you couldn't do this on any network television. At least I don't think you could, but it does. It has a number of layers to this show. It isn't just, sex, and more sex. It's just the way it is. It kind of reminded me almost of Sex and the City in the sense where, yeah, sex is in the name, but that's not the core of the show. It's just not. It's about like love and relationships and finding out who you are and where you stand and where you want to go and what you want and things like that. That's kind of where this show is. That's what this show is at its core. And yeah, it's actually almost kind of hard to recognize Julie Anderson at first because, she has like white hair in this and she looks thinner in this. And yeah, she does a really good job with her character, and a lot of the characters too, which I like about the show. They're imperfect characters. They're not perfect. They have their flaws. They have their issues. They have their mistakes. They have their, things that happened in the past that kind of make them who they are now, and stuff they're trying to go through and trying to get through. Stuff like that is going on. And like his mom has her issues. And there's reasons that happened in the past for that. Otis, like I said, has his issues. Mauve has her issues. His best friend, which I want to say is Eddie, has issues. So like they all have like their own little issues and things going on. Like, they're trying to figure out themselves and who they are and things like that, and, yeah, this is just really an amazing show. It really was. I mean, each episode is about 50-something minutes, like I said. So much happens in each episode. It has a great beginning, middle, and end. It has cool little cliffhangers of what's going to happen next in many of these episodes. And yeah, and it personally took me back kind of almost like my high school experience, like my like teenage experience, because I could in some ways relate to Otis. Some ways is the key word, being a late bloomer myself and just being like, unable to, unsure about a lot of things and what was happening to me, where I was going and what I wanted to do, and not really having a clue what I wanted to do per se. Not really. I was just like, hey, I'm just trying to, get through this time of my life and, and go where I'm supposed to go next. That's kind of what it was like. So yeah, I think Asa Butterfield does an amazing job in this. I think it's one of his better roles to date, and it's kind of a role of his too that I don't think, at least I personally don't think I've seen him do a role like this before. So it's kind of nice to see him like try something new as an actor, maybe like expand as an actor into something a little different, a little maybe like not as comfortable, and do a really good job with it. I mean, seriously, he does a great job as Otis in this. He really does. He doesn't hold the weight of the whole show, but he's an important part of the show. And that's what's nice about this show, too. It isn't like one character carries the weight of the whole series. No. There's Otis, there's Mauve, there's his mom, there's his best friend, there's some other people here and there, So, like, there's a lot of people, like, kind of like, taking turns carrying the weight of it, and doing that, the show does really, really well. It's not a show for everybody. It just isn't. I mean, but if you're looking for something different on Netflix, like really different that you're not going to see in there every day, this would be a show you might want to check out. And I mean that. I really do. And I don't think you'll regret it. You just, it is. It's one of those shows where at its core, it seems like, at its surface, it seems like one thing. But in reality, it's another thing entirely. And I think that's a good thing once you see a show like that, because you don't see that, I think, enough. I don't think you see enough. Like where some shows are so just basic the way they are, and that's the way they are, and that's the way they're going to be. And this one's like, no, we're going to do something a little different and take a chance. And I think it paid off immensely. Like I said, this season is available on Netflix now. It's 8 episodes. And I personally, this is one of those shows where I'm like, I would love to see a season 2 for this show. I really would. I would be totally for that. And I'd love to see what happens next and what goes on next. And this is a show, I think, if they're done right, it could have a good run for a while. And I mean that. I really do mean that. this show could tell a lot. It's not just limited to certain things. So yeah, definitely check that out, and I'd highly recommend it. So take yourselves another short little break, and we'll be back in a moment with more sci-fi news.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello everybody, this is Jay, back with some more sci-fi news. So this last thing I'm going to talk about, so we'll begin with, there's a show on TV, it's oh god, what is it, I want to say 5th or 6th season now. I want to say it might actually be a bit deeper than that. But it's a show that I originally, kind of resisted, was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch it, I don't really know if I have the time to watch it. But I saw an episode and I was instantly hooked, and that is The Goldbergs. It's a show that takes place in the 80s. I've actually met Adam Goldberg. He's actually a really cool guy, a really nice guy. He's done this show on ABC that's, like I said, it's had a good run so far, and it's not slowing down anytime soon, to my knowledge. And it's just full of 80s nostalgia. Growing up in the 80s myself, I remember a lot of this stuff and can relate to a lot of this stuff. And some of it I can't, but a lot of it I can. There's never really a full, hey, it's 81, 82, 83. It's 80-something. 1980-something is what they say. And it's just a really popular, really good show that I would highly recommend. I really, really like this show, and I definitely do want to see it keep going for a number more seasons. I think it easily could keep going for a number more seasons. And last season, they decided to do a episode that took place in the 90s. I think it was literally just called 1990 something. That's what it was called. Where, okay, there's no more Adam or Erica or Barry. We see Beverly Goldberg in it for some reason. Tim Meadows' character, who was a teacher or a guidance counselor, is now the principal of the school, and his sister becomes his new secretary, and her two kids, her two daughters, are going to the school now. So that's the premise of this episode. I remember watching this episode and personally not being that impressed. Not really. I was like, you know what? This isn't that great. This is kind of weird. It just was an attempt to to do a spin-off, and I feared, this is gonna probably give them an idea. Hey, we should do a spin-off of this show, and surprise, surprise, they did. And I'm like, oh god, please don't do that, because I don't know. With my experience with spin-offs, most spin-offs are a bad idea. They're an unnecessary idea. Nobody asked for it, and usually they don't last that long. If they're lucky, they get through a season. If they're unlucky, they don't last more than a few episodes. Some shows that come to mind for me, that 80s show, which was a spin-off of that 70s show, literally just 6 episodes. That's all it got. Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, a spin-off of Once Upon a Time. Not a bad show. Not a show I hated, but again, it got 1 season, and that's it. That's all it got. No mas. Now, of course, on the other side of the coin, there are shows like Mork and Mindy, which, to be fair, that was a spinoff of Cheers that got, I think, 3 seasons. Frasier, which got actually a good amount of seasons. And, of course, The Conners, which is on TV right now, which I will see if it gets more seasons or not. But so there's always, those shows, too, that they're spinoffs, and they do really well and last a really long time, but most of my experience with spin-offs is they don't last that well, they don't do that well, and they're usually not that necessary. So, anyways, this last week, the first episode of this new show, which is called Schooled, by the way, aired, and for starters, it's not how that episode was. It's actually Lainey, who was with Barry for, up to this season. And it's kind of funny, the pilot kind of spoils something for the people that we don't necessarily know yet on the show. Because I'm thinking on the Goldbergs, what I've heard is Barry and Erica are actually going to get married. Like, they're actually having a wedding and everything. And on this very first episode, like the very first few minutes, she says, oh yeah, me and Barry were this great couple, and we were this wonderful couple. We were like the couple, that everyone looked up to. And well, we didn't make it. We didn't work out. You're like, oh, okay. We didn't know that on the Goldbergs yet. So spoiler alert. Okay. And what's basically happening on this show is, so it is in the 90s. It's sometime in the 90s. We don't know when, 91, 92, 95, 97. We don't know. And anyway, she tried to do a music career. It didn't really work out how she hoped. She had debt. She needed, money. And she decides, you know what? I'm going to go back to my high school and be a music teacher. She sees online, which was AOL, which, AOL, and applies for this job. And originally the new principal doesn't want to give it to her, but when Beverly Goldberg for some reason comes in and tells you, you're going to give her this job, or I'm going to, be in here every single day bothering you, she gets the job. And I will say this. Focusing on Lainey is actually not a bad idea. She is a likable character. And I think, this pilot actually, which is called Be Like Mike, by the way, did kind of surprise me in some ways. I had really low expectations and low hopes for this show. And I can't say after watching this pilot, I'm like, okay, I was entirely wrong. This show's going to do great. I can't say that. But I can say that, in just this first episode where you kind of see Lainey, kind of do the next step of her life and, getting a job, where she's like, hey, I need to be an adult now and kind of become financially stable and and pay off my debts and, get up my own place and all that stuff. So she's kind of going, okay, I get adulthood. I'll give this a shot. And it is clear that it's not as easy as one would have hoped. There are some jokes where, hey, what are you doing in the, teacher's lounge? I'm a teacher here now, so Coach Miller has some jokes there with that. And yeah, it's not actually a bad episode. It's really not. There's basically just two stories going on here. One is, Lainey trying to be the music teacher and having a hard time with that. And the principal's niece, having a hard time with it. And then there's Coach Meller, who has a student playing basketball who's just showboating and being his one-man team. Because Michael Jordan can do it, well, then supposedly anyone can do it. Why it's called Be Like Mike. But those two stories are actually pretty good stories. They're pretty strong stories. It's nice they only did those two stories. And it kind of Coach Meller teaches his kid a lesson there. And as the episode progresses, Lainey kind of starts to get a little bit of the hang of how this teaching thing should go. So, in a nutshell, I can't say this pilot made me go, this show is going to, be a great show, but it gave me a little hope for the show at least. Because that episode, 1990 something, I'm sorry, it's probably one of the worst the Goldberg episodes I've ever watched. It just was. It was disappointing. It was not amazing. It was not exciting. It was just weird. It was random. It made no sense they even did it. And, it just was completely unnecessary, and it was obvious that hey, we're going to try to see if we can get something else going here because they know that the Goldbergs won't last forever. They just know that. It's just the reality. So, yeah, I can't say it's one of the best new shows I've ever seen, but it was definitely better than I thought it was going to be. It was. I was more impressed with than I expected to be, and I didn't really hate it. I really didn't. I was like, you know what? This overall is not a bad show. This is not a bad pilot. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of this show. But, even if a show is good, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to survive. So I think this is right now I'm at a time will tell. But it's not a bad start for the show. It's a better start for this show than I thought it was going to be. It's available on ABC now. You can watch it on there, and, it's not bad. I'm definitely, a little impressed and curious of where it's going to go next. So yeah, that's all we have for this episode. I hope you had a lot of fun learning some cool new things and hearing the things I brought to you. But don't you worry, we'll be back real soon with more sci-fi news.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.